please rise for pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Feldman, Glasser, Miller,
Present.
Schneider,
Present.
Powell,
Present.
Steffler, Dyke.
Present. Approval of the agenda. Communications number 1 should be moved to, is related to agenda item number 1. So we're just going to have that one the same. And Dale, you're on the regular agenda currently for the manager contract. You want that moved to closed session?
Yes, I would have asked that at that point, but that's fine.
Okay. Contract negotiation to closed session. Do we have any other additions or deletions from tonight's agenda? Being none, I'll entertain a motion for the agenda with the site changes.
So moved.
Support. Motion by President Pro Tem Steffler, supported by Councilmember Schneider, to approve the agenda as presented with the addendums. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Communications.
Page 3 PDF. Is that your? Just scroll by it.
Oh. The manager has, Dale, did you wanna comment anything on your bid advertisement?
No, just that I would have covered that. I'm going to cover that, some of that stuff in my comments
Okay.
at the end.
Consent agenda, regular meeting minutes, August 5th.
I have a couple corrections under council manager comment. The Parks and Recreation Board is referred to as the Park and Recreation Committee. So I would just request that that is updated. Oh, under open discussion, the last sentence says the council agreed to table the item until the council meeting on August 18th. Because it was open discussion, I believe it'd be more accurate to say that council agreed to move the item to the regular agenda on the council meeting for August 18th. That's all I have.
Check register report. Check disbursement report. Check register.
Just 1 second, Tim. Under monthly work orders, there was one thing I noticed. 2965 DPW Park Street Branch Burley Park was put under maintenance for parks, and I believe that should come from general fund, since it shouldn't come from the parks fund.
Is that the tree trimming?
Mm-hmm. For Burley.
Right.
So
It was.
I just want to make sure that it's not charged to the Almont Community Park Fund.
Burley Park isn't considered part of that park.
Correct.
Correct. Okay.
Mhm.
It had the word park.
It sure does.
We have something to say before. Wastewater treatment plant report, weed report, EDA report, financial position report, treasurer report.
Just one second, Tim. Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll them. I'm gonna try and keep up. I think this is where I had a quick question. Cash summary report. Let me see. So it's possible that this has always been like this. I just have never noticed. But when I was looking at the Parks and Recreation Fund, it says beginning balance, and then it says total debits, and then total credits. But it seems like those columns
It's
are like,
no,
and maybe it's just my brain isn't
it's-
thinking of it in an accounting way.
it's always that way, but in accrual accounting, when you increase, it's a debit. When you decrease, it's a credit. So it's a fun
Right.
form of accounting.
I figured
So.
it probably was an accounting thing, but I just
That's okay.
wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Treasurer report, charge and code authority, FOIA report.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by President Pro Tem Steffler, supported by Councilmember Glosser to approve the consent agenda with noted changes. All those in favor say aye. All those in favor, all those opposed, same sign. Motion unanimously passes with all council members present. Now is the time for public comment for any comment not on our regular, or for any item on our regular agenda. Is there any public comment tonight? Being none. Agenda item number 1, resolution for capital improvement bonds.
Yes, I'll jump in and start. I will, in a second, I'll introduce our Miller Canfield representative that's here, but you have had the packet for a little while, the resolution to move forward with a bond sale to cover the match money for our St. Clair Street project and the anticipated construction cost for the new DPW building. At this point, any monies that we collect, we would in fact place in the bank until such times it was needed, and then use it on, it must be used on the projects specifically called out in the resolution. Trying to think of anything to touch base on before I introduced it. Of course, you guys at any point ask questions. I provided a couple of documents that aren't in the packet that break down our, the way that we looked at and why we settled on 2.5 million. We also are looking at the match monies, how the match monies would be divided up in the various accounts and the current fund balances. So, all that being said, I'd like to introduce Tom Colas from Miller Canfield. He was the one that I approached. He prepared this resolution, but he is also the one that upgraded it with the additional information requested by the council. And Tom is here to present and talk about the resolution and answer any questions you might have.
Good evening. Oh, sorry. Again, as indicated, again, we prepare as our role as bond counsel to the village. Part of our responsibilities and is to prepare the necessary documents to go in front of council for the review and consideration. And ultimately, we give an opinion at the end that is relied upon by the village and by the purchaser of the bonds, that the bonds are legal, valid, and binding obligations of the village, and exempt from federal and state income tax. So as part of that responsibility, we want to draft the necessary legal documents to provide the proper authorization, which includes the resolution in front of you. It also included the notice of intent resolution that initiated the process that authorized publication of the notice in the paper. And we've since passed that time period where there was a right of referendum associated with it. So as part of the sale of the bonds, the marketing and sale of the bonds, we work with the village's financial advisor to establish the parameters that go into the structure, into the financing, and that's incorporated into the resolution. So when we draft those resolutions, we look at those parameters that are provided and make sure that they comply with state law and also that they're built into the resolution. The resolution is rather lengthy, but the majority of it's taken up by two forms. One is the form of the bonds that will actually be utilized once the bonds are sold. We'll prepare those in our office and ultimately send those to the paying agent who will hold those for the bondholders. And second is the form of notice of sale. That's really the lengthiest part of the document. And that's the notice that's going to be published in the paper. The bond buyer is the actual paper that is used to sell bonds. We will undertake that publication on behalf of the village, but the cost will be part of the bond proceeds, part of the cost of issuance for the bonds. And that is part of the information that an investor looks at and says, okay, if I want to bid on the village's bonds, it's a synopsis of all the information they need to make that bid. There's also another document that goes along with the sale of the bonds called an official statement. That's a rather lengthy document that's a draft's already been prepared by the village's financial advisor that provides to an investor all the information they need to make an informed investment decision. So think of it as the prospectus for this particular bond issue. So the front half details the specifics of the bonds. When are they payable? When's principal and interest paid? What's the purpose and security for the bonds? What's the tax status of the bonds? So there's a section in there that they're exempt from federal and state income tax based on the village as a governmental entity and the anticipated use of the bond proceeds. Then there's a whole appendix on the village itself. So if an investor had no idea where the village was, what the industry was, what the balance between residents and commercial was with respect to the village, that information, that section would have all the information they would need. So some of the general financial information related to the village and the community in general. So if I'm living out in California and I have no idea what this is, I'm going to look at that to get a sense of the village, their finances. It also includes, that document also includes the latest audit from the village and the latest budget. So it gives me a general sense of the finances in general. It also, the cover of that document will have a rating by one of the independent rating agencies. So if I don't want to dive into the specifics of that document, I can look at the cover and see what the rating of the bonds is. So this resolution encompasses a lot of those things. It authorizes the issuance of bonds an amount not to exceed $2.5 million, provides the structure for the bonds, when they're payable, principal and interest, provides that the bonds are, the security for the bonds is basically the general fund, the pledge of the village, the full faith and credit pledge of the village. It again has the form of the bond, has the form of the notice of sale, provides that the bonds will be sold through a competitive sale. And it also has some covenants at the back. So the village covenants to maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds, which basically means that you'll use the facilities for governmental purposes, and designates them as qualified tax exempt. What that means is the village expects to issue less than $10 million in tax exempt debt in calendar year 2026. So it can have this additional tax designation, which is attractive to financial institutions. It allows them to have an additional deduction of interest costs from their own perspective. And it provides how the bonds can be sold and awarded. That was the change that we made from the previous version that you've seen to incorporate some of the language that council wanted with respect to some of the parameters associated with the bonds, and then how the bonds can be awarded. So what that language basically has is, once there needs to be certain information gathered and presented to council prior to actually selling the bonds. And then once that's presented and council's comfortable with that, then we can proceed to sell the bonds pursuant to the parameters that are set out in the resolution. Happy to answer any questions on the process, timing, resolution itself, anything associated with the bond issue. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So 13A, the new language that we proposed,
Yes.
does it require a resolution or just presentation once that happens? I mean, we structured it so that way more definitive information gets presented to council for council's review and approval. And when that approval takes place, just so that we do so appropriately, would it require another resolution, just presentation, a formal approval? I just want to make sure that when we reach that stage, we know what we're doing since we created this monster.
I think it makes sense to have a formal resolution that's basically very short that says, in pursuant of this resolution, section 13A, council's considered and approved. So I think just from a formality standpoint, since we have that in there as an additional condition, we want to make sure that the condition's satisfied prior to actually proceeding the issue and market and sell the bonds.
Okay, then my next thing is one of the concerns that we had, or at least that I raised as to wanting to amend section 13 to add A, was really more over the verbiage of section 12. To put it plainly and broadly, does section 13 now control over section 12?
Yeah,
okay.
It would.
All right. I think that pretty much covers what's the financing timetable at this point?
So depending upon when council can consider that additional information, the current table, which would have to be slightly adjusted, it has us selling bonds near the end of September and proceeds received middle October. Now that still can be accomplished. If we have to slow out a week or two, you're still getting proceeds in October. So if that's still satisfactory to your expectations as to when you need bond proceeds and want bond proceeds, that's an appropriate time schedule. If the idea is the information that's necessary is brought to council in September, then we can proceed after that to initiate the marketing and sale of the bonds. Typically, we'll need at least a week, probably 10 days to 2 weeks prior to the actual sale to know that we have the green light to go. And what that means is that publication of the notice that we have authorized here, or that's in the resolution, that has to be published at least 7 days prior to the actual bond sale. And it takes 3 to 4 days to actually get it into the paper, reviewed before that. So, and the same with the offering document. So we'll want to make sure that we've got probably a good 2 week period after council's had a chance to consider the additional information and approve, moving forward. Then we can target and go forward and pick a sale date. The current sale date was September 23, and those are all tentative, right? That's all tentative. I think we would probably slightly move that maybe a week. Just depending upon, we'll have to consult with a financial advisor to make sure there's nothing that they're expecting that particular week. So no Fed meetings, nothing that would want you to move from a particular date. But our expectation would be we would sell the last week of September or first week of October and still have receive proceeds in October. So typically it's a 3 week period from the date that we sell. So what that means is we're going to get bids in on that particular date. We're going to determine who's the lowest true interest cost. And if the village wants to accept any bids, it has to accept the lowest true interest cost by state law. And then what we'll do is we then generate the closing documents that are necessary to sign prior to closing. So that's typically a 3 week period from sale date to closing. So if we need to make some adjustments, slide the schedule a week or two, we'll still have plenty of time to make sure that you have proceeds in October if that's the goal.
I guess my last question, the rating that we're going to receive, when do we get more information on the rating?
So the expectation would be there'll be a call set up with the rating agency. They'll request certain information with respect to the village and its policies and things like that. So the village's financial advisor will work with staff to make sure that all that information is presented. And then they'll schedule a time for a rating agency call, and then they'll ultimately make the review and provide the rating prior to us selling the bonds.
And like you said, it includes our last audit. So is that because our audit isn't even going to take place until sometime next month? So it would be last year's audit that would be
Correct.
included?
Yep. Now they'll probably ask questions about, how do you think you did this fiscal year based upon budget? So they want to get the most recent update, but they know that it won't be audited financial statements. They know that there's a time.
Okay.
That takes time. Yeah. And that you under state law, you've got 6 months
Right.
by the end of the fiscal year to complete the audit. So they're well aware of that timing.
Yeah, I'm satisfied. Thank you.
I have a couple questions, maybe questions for our village manager or yourself, I'm not sure. But a couple of times there was a mention of the village's financial advisor. Who is that?
Yeah, so the village is utilizing an entity called MFCI. They're one of the 5 financial. These are municipal advisory firms, by the way. So they're not like financial advisors that do other type of financial advice. They're registered municipal advisors, and they're required to be registered under the MSRB rules. And so there's a handful of them here in Michigan, and they're included here as part of they've been, the discussion with the village manager and providing some of the structure and analysis associated with that. So that's who the village's financial advisor would be.
And a question about the amount that we have listed in the resolution here. Understand that this is up to the 2.5 million.
Correct.
Is there advantage or disadvantage to having this full amount? So we decide we don't want this full amount. And when it comes to the bidding process or anything like that, could you maybe talk about that a little bit?
So once bids come in and you know exactly what the estimated construction cost is, the issue will be kind of resized before we go ahead and publish the notice of sale and publish the offering document based upon, because we're only going to issue what you need to put into the construction fund and to pay cost of issuance. There's not going to be any additional money set aside that you don't know that you won't have the need for. So based upon and what the bids come in as to what's going to need for construction, that's how we typically size the bond issue, and you add on top of that what the typical cost of issuance are. So fees associated with publication costs, our fees as bond counsel, financial advisory fees, those are all built into sizing the ultimate bond issue and what's sold. And I think the expectations for some of the preliminary numbers was something that would be not more than $2.5 million, but the idea would be that it will be refined once we have bids in hand.
For clarification, we're doing 2 projects. We're doing the road project, which our commitment is $950,000 change.
980.
980, sorry. And the the DPW building. I know we're doing bids right now for the construction of the road, but we have not done any bidding for the DPW building, correct?
No, we had a proposal last year for construction of the 12,000 square foot building per our proposed standards and ideas, and it was 1.4 million. So that's why I'm suggesting 1.5 million.
So that's what we're basing that off of. And if I read the package correctly, if we go for the whole 2.5 million on the bond, if it comes in short, we can just use some of the remaining to pay off.
So what you're saying is if the bids come in under 1.5 million,
Right.
and the cost is lower than we anticipated, yes, we can turn right around and reinvest that, put that right back on the bond and reduce right out of the gate our costs. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, the bond proceeds should be used for project costs. They shouldn't be used to pay debt service on bonds. So to the extent that they're,
Then let me rephrase my question.
Yeah.
We're asking, maybe this will help me too. We're asking for 2.5.
Mhm.
So if our costs come in and it's 2.1 or 1.8, what's the result of that?
I mean, the result would be you'd have to either set aside the money to, well, that means you've issued more than you need for the project, right? So
what is the consequence, or what is the fallout of that?
the consequence is you use it for other purposes that are already identified in the resolution for, because water, sewer, road improvements in the village, so you can still use it for capital purposes.
Well, that's confusing though, because you said we can only use it for what's specified, and then what's specified is the West St. Clair project.
use it for capital.
What's that?
You can only use it for capital.
So it doesn't have to be the West St. Clair capital improvement. So if we bond 2.5 and come in at 1.8, we could apportion the rest of that to School Street.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Or Washington.
Not Washington.
Gotcha.
Correct.
But just for clarification, once we've borrowed that, there's no other remedy. Can't use it to start repaying the bond.
Right.
We have to retain it, and we have to use it for capital improvement.
At the end of the day, there is a tax circumstance where you could defease a portion of the bonds, but the bonds aren't going to be callable for 10 years, right? So the tax rules allow you to take out some of the bonds if you don't need them all, but that's, if you realize in year 3 that you don't have the use for a large portion of the bonds, and you want to use it to reduce the debt service on the bonds, you're not going to be able to actually pay down the bonds until year 10. So that's a long period of time to hold those proceeds.
It's a long period of time for us to realize we have no capital improvement projects too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and again, the idea is you're still limited to the notice, the projects that were identified in the notice, right? So, I don't have the notice in front of me.
Specify the West St. Clair or the St. Clair project, and
I don't think our notice of intent was that broad. I think our notice of
That specific, water, sewer.
yeah, it was acquiring, furnishing, constructing, furnishing, and equipping the Department of Public Works facility, acquiring, constructing water, sewer, and road improvements in the village,
okay.
together with all related site work and associated improvements. So it's so to the extent that
That gives us more flexibility.
you may be focused on a particular project right now, but to the extent there are savings or cost savings from either of the projects, well, you know the match dollar amount already, but to the extent that there's a couple $100,000 from the DPW, if it comes in under cost, or then you could utilize it for those other capital improvements related to water, sewer, and road improvements in the village.
And a perfect example of that could be, as we've been saying, the extension of the utilities beyond from St. Clair up into the neighborhood where we talked about, but it could also mean new sidewalk beyond the project parameters, into, to a different area. All things that can be related to the project directly. And I love your, how positive you are that we may come in under budget. That is great. We have all the intention of doing that.
Well, that comes down to the decision, because it's going to be 1.8, we're holding on to $0.5 million worth of bond that we can't use and we're paying interest on it. That makes no sense.
Right.
It's the over borrow and pay interest with taxpayer money that we didn't need that is the concern at the moment.
But if we can utilize it for other projects that need to be done, then I'm a lot more comfortable with it.
Short on projects to do, we just want to know how we can use it and what the remedy is.
Well, if we could knock out School Street along with this, that would be.
Additionally, though, and this, Tom may have to correct me here because I haven't looked recently, but the cost of this bond, interest-wise, is significantly less than we receive in the bank. And because we are a small community, we're allowed to generate that interest and keep it in the general fund. We don't have to pay arbitrage or any of that. So that, again, I appreciate your belief that we will come in under our anticipated budget, but there's really no downside to any way that you look at this going forward.
Keep in mind, you do have to have the expectation to spend those proceeds, right? And you've got 3 years to spend the proceeds. So to the extent that decision gets made, you've got 3 years to, again, you don't have to give the money back after 3 years, but it's your reasonable expectation at the time you issue the debt that you'll, yeah. And that's what a lot of communities do with kind of having this open-ended, it's not open-ended, it's specific to certain types of improvements, but that's what a lot of communities do with, hey, I've got a specific project, but at the end of the day, if I've got money left over, I want to be able to utilize it for other capital projects in the community. So that language allows you to do that for those purposes.
Don't take our questions as what if we overborrow, is that there's a high level of optimism that we're going to come in under budget. It was merely a what if
Yeah.
scenario.
No, that's an excellent question. That's an excellent question. Yep.
No, that's fine, because those were very related questions. I think we have had these discussions about how much to borrow with some very healthy fund balances that we could pay cash for a pretty significant portion of these projects without needing to go to bond. And that's where I'm like kind of struggling with this 2.5 million full cost if we could pay cash for a portion of it. I see there's the pro of then having additional monies for projects, but then we continue to have these fund balances.
We got it. I appreciate getting it, Dale. We got it all kind of late to really study it, but if you looked at the CIP information sent today, there's a load of projects that, the tertiary, the wastewater treatment plant alone that's due in 1 or 2 years is $1 million by itself. So those are the kind of things we need to think about, keeping some cash in reserves to have for those kind of future projects, because there was at least 3 or 4 projects that I think were listed as immediate need that probably total upwards to $1.8 to $2 million. That was just looking at the Excel. That was not me really doing a deep dive on it. So just as an FYI.
And even though I'm not the village's financial advisor, I will note that as part of the rating agency process, one of the factors that they consider and take into account is fund balances. One of the many factors. So anytime you sell bonds out to the market of over $1 million, the market's really going to want you to have a rating on the bonds. And one of the factors they're going to look at is what kind of fund balances do you have in your various funds to, take care of whether regular operation and maintenance, upkeep of your systems, and kind of a rainy day fund here and there too. So that's a factor to keep in mind. So there's a balance to be had between, hey, we've got the cash, do we fund the whole thing? But how far down does that deplete your reserves? And that's a great conversation to have. And the rating agencies have some thoughts on that as you go through that process too.
So is DPW building 1.5 or 1.3 at this point, Dale? Okay. The CIP that you sent a little earlier was says 1.3, and that's what I was asking. And it names the bond proceeds as the source. So
Well, and that CIP, as you know, was created in 2020.
only
So,
reason why I'm
yeah.
just making sure what.
And unfortunately, Mr. Colas doesn't know this, but I sent out a detailed email to these guys last night, and we've been having a problem with old data that we use out of the computer, and I'm not that computer literate, so I sent them a beautiful Excel spreadsheet with colored, highlighted, all the stuff, because we had 75 items on our CIP, and 60% of them or more were already completed. That was all highlighted. It went out. It was saved as this beautiful document. It recorded as unchanged. So they got a document that was created 6 years ago.
Right.
And it didn't give them a lot of information. But in the end, you'll see, if you look through that list, that a vast majority of those items have been completed. And I added to it, you actually had out there about 4 different CIPs ongoing over the last 6 years. And one of them was in a water study, reliability study. One of them was in a wastewater study. One was part of this project that Wade Trim did, or Rowe did for you in 2020, that had a very nice CIP ongoing for 6 years that expired this spring. And then there was the one that the village was maintaining, independent of all of that, on a cloud-based website. That is the one that you received last night, that had the compilation of almost all of that information in it. So that being said, there's been a lot of looking at CIPs, and therefore people were aware of projects, and many of them have been done. As an example, the one project the police department had on the list since 2020 was bollards, and it's done. Stuff like that. So
Where we're at on the CIP, what those projects are, their level of urgency, what their cost is, what our level of savings is, also dictates how much we want to borrow for the bond. They are all connected. I know it's frustrating because we are working on stale data and stuff like that, but at the same time, before we take out this bond, how much of it do we actually need? How much of it are we going to spend on which projects? And then therefore, how much of the savings that we've done can we do? And then what should we set water and sewer rates at? And should we continue to increase them? They are all interconnected.
right, but you just heard that the bond proceeds are restricted to the items that would be in the CIP and the project, and then those other things are consistent with what you've had on the CIP for 6 years and moving forward. So again, you have fund balance to work on those items, and their priority, reassessed, can be reassessed. You already know I already have a company working on a new rate study and a CIP for us. But in the meantime, they're important but different. And one of the things I was planning to report in my review is that we had a very good meeting with Great Lakes Water over our water rates. We were able to negotiate a minuscule reduction rather than status quo, which is what their original proposal was. So our rates won't be going up based on demand in the next 5 years.
5 years?
It's a 5-year agreement.
We got a 5-year rate lock.
No, it's a 5-year pumping, etc. It's one of the major components to setting the cost of our water. Right. So we are locking in for 5 years what we anticipate our highs and lows based on 20 years of studies and all of our detailed tracking. And Great Lakes Water agreed with us, and they actually approved in the meeting the reduction in our numbers. So
it's still a rate increase, just
there's always going to be a cost of living related rate.
Right, okay.
But you know that we've suggested, staff suggested this year, that we not pass that on, that we eat that. But then council wanted to go back and review rates. That's why we have a company coming in doing a independent rate study for us.
Right, and with the information that's been provided, I remain unconvinced that we shouldn't be borrowing the bond and that we shouldn't be still increasing rates, because it does seem like we still have more than enough that we need to do. But I'm not certain of that either.
That you shouldn't.
I am unconvinced that we should not be passing it. But that's there's still too much that's hanging out there. But I have a more specific, different question, because that's all hypothetical at the moment. The June 5th rate that we were given, the 3.84%, it's like, what, it's 74 days old right now, and it assumes an A rating, correct?
Actually, it went down twice after that, and I don't know what's happened since then.
That's all I was asking. Is it stale, and do we need an updated rate?
I don't think it's significant to you. You're not following the rates, are you?
I mean, yeah, I mean, we just, you sell bonds we sell bonds, every week. So, the rates keep fluctuating based on particularly our global situations that we're having. So I would have MFCI update those.
Sure,
'Cause,
absolutely.
I think rates have from earlier this year, May, June, they actually went down and then they're slightly back up again. So I don't know exactly when that analysis was done for you. And we're talking a 20-year deal.
15 or 20.
Yeah. So, which will, again, that'll certainly impact the rate, whether you want to go 15 or 20 years. And again, I think they probably did their initial analysis as to the rating on the bonds too. So, which also is a major factor in what rate you get.
That's the only reason I'm looking at the 3.84 that was presented, and I'm going, okay, it's 74 days old. It assumes an A rating, and it assumes a sale 7 days from today. And none of those things are happening.
Right.
Are those a little stale? Is the rate going to change? And so
Yeah.
the answer sounds like yes. We just don't know exactly by what.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we have resolutions reports.
Yeah, I think we've exhausted the discussion portion of this item, unless anybody else has any further questions or discussion.
Well, just note over the next 2 years, we do have 196.3 for the incoming audit tax. Higher bond issues that are expiring.
They're expiring, correct.
Yeah, the two outstanding bonds, the one matures October 1 of this year at 75,000, and then there's one left that has 130,000 left that matures in 10/1 of 2027. So that's total principal of 205,000 that's maturing in the next short period of time, just over a year.
Resolution 2026-0801 on the 2026 capital improvement bond limited tax general obligation.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Glosser, supported by Councilmember Miller to approve resolution number 2026-0801 as stated on the record. Is resolution roll call? Roll call.
Yes. Glasser. Miller.
Aye.
Schneider.
Aye.
Powell.
Aye.
Steffer.
Aye.
And Dyke.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Stay.
Thank you for coming tonight. You were very informative. My pleasure. Thank you. Agenda item number 2, resolution number 2026-08-02, or is there two resolutions or just one?
It's 02. We just did 01.
Okay.
02.
So, Mr. President, you were presented this issue at your last meeting, and my understanding is the police chief reviewed his memo, discussed it at length. It was requested by the council that they follow their procedure of receiving resolutions one meeting and then voting on them at the next meeting. The Clemis agreement would then be voted on at this meeting. Clemis is a operation we have used for decades. They're changing their name because they broke away from Oakland County. And our costs have gone up slightly because they now require each car to have a license. And I pursued the 911 emergency management to eat these costs because in fact there is a millage in place, but they reminded me that the millage is specifically for dispatch at 911 and not for our individual cars or any facilities outside of 911. So they basically said, no, you got to take care of it yourself, which we are the last ones to do this. And that is because this resolution was stuck in our firewall and it wouldn't come through. We couldn't get it. We finally ended up, I had to go out and allow it special from the sender to come in. And that's why it's probably 2 months later than it should have been, than we would have liked to have gotten it to you. So you look at the list of people who've already signed off that are involved, we're the last ones. So I'm hoping you will approve the resolution tonight. We can continue to have good police communication with the rest of the world.
I hate to tell you this. Can't believe I didn't notice it last week and it took
Too
me this
late.
long to notice it. I think we would be absolutely ridiculously negligent to approve this tonight. Did anyone else notice that it offers for us to approve 3 separate agreements we've never seen, never been presented to us? And the chief's own memo says the attached main services agreement. It's never been attached. We've never read it. The resolution itself, participation in the Clemis Authority interlocal agreement. Anyone seen the interlocal agreement? We have no idea what it says. We've never been provided it. On top of that, it talks about us being part of the participation agreement. Never been provided. Don't know what it says. There's no terms. How many years is it for? What does it cost? Do we get a seat? Do we not get a seat? I looked at the one that White Lake passed. They get a seat. They get an actual participation in whether or not it's proposed or not. My point is this is a bare bones resolution approving a multitude of agreements, okay, that we've never been presented. I have no idea what the terms are. I don't know what I am agreeing to. I am agreeing to multiple other agreements never seen. I can't believe I did not recognize that last time, or that none of us did.
And that that massive packet wasn't in the last packet. I wasn't at
Good
the
God,
meeting,
no.
so.
No, it absolutely was not. So, I really wish I had brought it up last time so we would have had the last 2 weeks to review it. I did not even recognize it. We spent time talking about what Clemis is. The only presentation that was made was, yes, we like Clemis. Councilmember Feldman gave his opinions on the usefulness of Clemis. I don't have a problem with Clemis as a software. I have a problem with this council entering into an agreement that we have no idea what we are agreeing to. Different municipalities have gotten different terms. Some of them get a seat and it's advisory only. They don't actually have any authority. Some of them actually get a voting seat and they actually have voting rights. I don't know which we are. I don't know what the terms are. I can read other communities' agreements and gather what their rights are. I don't know what ours are. We have not been provided any agreement whatsoever. We have been provided a stock resolution with the wrong date 3 times with no agreements attached.
And I have to say, I'm surprised. The agreement that I saw, the Clemis resolution and attachments that I thought were in your hands at the last packet, had sign off from Sterling Heights. It had every other municipality in this region.
I had to research
Signed
myself to
off.
find out what other communities already signed off. I had to research myself to find out what the deadline is, and it's September 30th. We have another 2 meetings before that date to approve this, and we need to know what we are actually agreeing to. I don't like the bare bones resolution approving to what could be 1-page agreements or 500-page agreements, and I have no idea what's in them. That's why I said I take the position. I do not feel that it would be appropriate for this council to vote on this tonight. And if the rest of the council disagrees with me, I will vote no, because I don't feel that it's appropriate.
Well, and to tack on, absolutely, I would agree with you that it should be tabled and reviewed. In my mind, seeing all the other municipalities, entities, legal groups that have reviewed and signed off, I figured this was, it's like signing off on our Great Lakes Water Agreement. It's a document that's unchanged and it covers a multitude of municipalities. But you have highlighted that you didn't get that, you didn't see that. So it should be.
Sounds like, according to Mr. Schneider, each individual entity has their own different kind of agreement.
Oh,
To an extent.
Small variations, some of them do. I mean, and you would obviously, in order to entice larger municipalities, give them more sway and more authority. From my understanding, because again, I'm going off of what's publicly reported, and I didn't have time to FOIA everybody's. This was quick research when I realized this late this afternoon. There's additional concerns. Okay, I want to see the agreements themselves, and I want to see if it assuages some of the scandals and the other issues that have gone on with relation to the Clemens system. As far as the software goes, I get that, and I don't have a problem with that. But there's a $450,000 IT contract that went to one of the sitting county members that was found to be illegal, and 4 of the county board members were sanctioned for it. And there's been access for ICE to this, for name search recognition. They've received hundreds of thousands of dollars from ICE for it. There's other things too. What do the agreements actually say? Just want to know what they say so I know what we're getting into. I'm not suggesting that Clemens as a service is not something that this community can benefit from, that our police department would absolutely love to utilize. Okay, but what are we agreeing to? This resolution approves too much that's unknown to me just at this moment.
And I assume, based on your comments, that the differences are exactly that. A community of 1 million is going to have a seat on the board, and et cetera, versus a community of 3,000 will get the newsletter. That's the way it works. So
you have a right to show up and watch us do all the work.
Right.
And that may very well be it. And all I'm saying is I can't approve it unknowingly. And maybe that is the case. Maybe only the county gets 15 seats and the rest of us get to sit there and watch. Maybe not. But again, even with our chief and how impressive he is, and I have a great deal of respect for him, even if he serves only in an advisory capacity, I'd rather have that than nothing. So what is that option? Because there is a difference in the verbiage of some of this. The interlocal agreement is the idea of the communities working together. But if you look in the final bullet point, directed to file a copy of the participation agreement. Participation in and of itself, from what I understand from reading one of the other communities, you actually get a vote to some extent. You are participating. But again, just what is being offered to us? If it's boilerplate, we all get the same, that would help alleviate some of my concerns as to what the possibilities are. Just need to see what we're actually approving.
Anybody else in council?
Sounds reasonable.
Next meeting with more information. Agenda item number 3, approval of number 207 Public Safety Fund. Who's handling this one?
I am. As I've spoken for the last few months about changing to having the Fund 207 called Public Safety, and then if ever there was a fire department, they would be their own department within there. I did follow up with Michigan State Treasury. They okayed this as being a good idea. The way the fund was set up, and then all of that is in the budget amendments. There's an actual line item for the township's amount, the amount that the village would bring in will be a transfer. That's the way from the general fund, that's the way Treasury wants to see it. And then there would be the millage that comes in from the SRO for the revenue. Then everything else is an expense. And in the budget amendments, if this gets a clear motion today, the budget amendments today are just those items. It takes and zeroes out everything that was spent out of the general fund for the police department and the equipment fund and places it all in the 207 public safety fund. When I did all the numbers and presented it to you, there would be a balance of about $2,880, I think my number is, for the equipment fund. So the equipment fund would no longer be in a deficit in the fiscal year of 26-27 because we wouldn't put all the police cars' costs of their principal and interest in there. So this would be very clean. Everybody could see what the police fund or the police department actually costs to run without it being mixed within the general fund. I did not give them any more revenue besides the 3 items I spoke about and the money that comes from the state for the training. There are like tickets and ordinances, but Dale and I talked about some of that, and it's pretty insignificant. And most of those tickets occur through the OEO. So then we really want that to stay in the general fund, and we can always change it at some point. But I just didn't include it in the overall package. So what I wrote a memo for you today that just basically set a motion in place that we would approve the addition of the 207 public safety fund, the general fund, and the equipment fund will no longer include number 301 police department. So if you're good with that, we approve that motion, then that is what the budget amendments are. The only other item in the budget amendment is that I put $23,000 for that GL I created for homecoming, so we could clearly track homecoming's expenses. And the $23,000 is what was in there, approximately what they were in their savings account. I don't think they spent that much. We've been keeping track with them. Pam has been working with Steve Zott. Last of the bills are coming in, so there might be some savings still that will be in there. So those were what would be the next item on the budget amendments. So if anybody has any questions, the documents for all of this are part of the budget amendment that I put in there for item number 4.
So we're doing 2 motions here. One to approve the use of account 207, and then second,
Which is another item on the agenda, approving those budget amendments. Yes.
council.
I'll make the motion that we approve the addition of the 207 Public Safety Fund.
Support.
Motion by President Pro Tem Stepler, supported by Councilmember Powell to approve the creation and use of Public Safety Fund 207. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously by all council members present. Agenda item number 4, the first quarter budget amendments. Did you have any other commentary on the budget amendments?
No, just if anybody had any questions at all, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council?
Next set of financial statements, you get all of the expenses that we've spent over 6 weeks in those 2 areas. I'll do a journal entry to transfer that accordingly. BSNA is going to work with me on that, and then you won't see that Department of Police will disappear because it's all zeros. Same thing in the equipment fund, into general and the equipment fund, they'll be gone. And it'll all the activity will be in the 207 fund for the year.
There's nothing wrong with the data here that I see. Can I just make a comment? And I know
Sure.
you're not gonna love this. When we used to be presented with these before, the only thing that was distinctly different was because they were presented from Excel, they were color coded. It was just much easier to recognize things
Okay.
quickly. I will admit my eyes tend to glaze over when I'm trying to read this one, just because of the font. It's a little easier on the eyes and a little easier to recognize the differences for the increase in
Now,
from the changes. It just makes it easier to see.
this one will not be color coded because that comes out of the software the way
Agreed.
it is. Okay, but
Do you-
then
The next
Do-
one.
do you want me to color code the resolution that I created with it?
The revenue and expenditure report, which gives us the year-to-date balance,
Okay.
the activity, the available
That-
balance, the percent of budget used. That one is one that I'm used to seeing, but just from an Excel standpoint, where we can tell the differences, because obviously the one that came from BSNA, it's not telling me the differences of what it was originally and now the amended budget. The different, yeah, that's all I'm getting at. Is we're trying to obviously make a difference, but recognize the
Right.
difference between what we originally budgeted versus how we're amending, and it's just easier to start to recognize the main.
I will work on that because I have not done it that way before, so I will definitely work on that, so.
Anybody else from council on the budget amendments as proposed? Do we have a motion?
Let's go for it. Do it.
I'll make the motion that we approve the first quarter budget amendments as presented.
Support.
Motion by President Pro Tem Stouffer, supported by Councilmember Miller to approve the first quarter budget amendments as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, President Dyke, that anything that's with money in a budget, yeah, roll call please.
Roll call.
Steffler,
Aye.
Miller.
Aye.
Glasser. Schneider.
Aye.
Powell.
Aye.
And Dyke.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously by roll call by all council members present. Agenda item number 5, addendum to the industrial park purchase agreement.
Yes, Mr. President, you'll see in front of you, there was a document placed at the table. It is rather basic. I sent it off to Councilman Snyder today to review it because to me, it seemed like a slam dunk, no issues, but I'd like him to check the language. You can see he added a few things in red that he felt were in our best interest. I'm sure that the author will not mind the amendments on the end when and if you approve it as amended or as presented tonight. This is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman, but this is simply to allow email communication and DocuSign use during the execution and wrap up of the purchase of the DPW property.
In theory, it's harmless. In theory, it's not unusual to add the ability to communicate by email. Court rules, statutes, all those things, they require that both parties agree to email notice. We already have an agreement, and we just agreed that it would be by mail, and the sellers are taking the position, look, I don't have regular access to send you certified mail or FedEx or anything like that. I want to be able to communicate by email, but I'm not even going to try to do that with you until you amend the purchase agreement to allow it. Sure. And so he put together an amendment to the purchase agreement. I know what he meant. It was inherently flawed because he made it so that he could receive email notice, but not that he could send us email notice, which was exactly what he wanted. He wanted to email us things it was just short of what he was actually trying to achieve. I have no problem with that. I just added the standard language for both parties to be able to do that, and to clarify that if you do it by email, it doesn't change any of the other deadlines or notice periods for anything else. It's purely that. So it was my suggested red lines, and because I was getting to it last second, Dale, when he asked earlier in the day, I said, no, I don't see an issue with it. It's not fatal. It's not a problem. It's pretty procedural. I don't see any problem with it. And then when I had a chance to actually go back and compare it to the exact sections of the purchase agreement itself, I went, oops, there's a couple of mistakes in the draft. So here's my last minute revisions. I emailed to everyone, and thankfully staff printed it, put it in front of everybody so they could see what my suggestions are. But again, they're just suggestions.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the addendum to the industrial park purchase agreement with the changes as noted.
Support.
Motion by Councilmember Miller, supported by President Pro Tem Steffler, to accept the amendment to the real estate purchase agreement for the industrial park. All those in favor?
But before we vote, just for clarification, we're saying accept. Again, this is an addendum to a purchase agreement. So I don't know if this is what you meant by your motion before we vote on it. Are we authorizing the execution of it? Because that's what we need. We need either our village manager or our village president to sign the addendum so it can be sent back. Accepting it, sure. Just want to make sure I get it correct. Or we're authorizing one of the two of them to sign the addendum and send it back.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Re-support.
Thank you, Steven.
Clarified motion by Councilmember Miller, supported by President Pro Tem Steffler, to authorize the signing of the amended real estate purchase agreement. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes by all council members present. That concludes tonight's regular agenda. Now it's time for public comment for anybody, for anything not on the regular agenda. Do we have any public comment? Being zero. No open discussion. Mr. Kerberson, before we go into session, do you have anything to bring to council?
Oh, yes, I have quite a list. 2 meetings worth.
What's that?
I have quite a list, 2 meetings worth. First, I wanted to thank you for the awesome review. I mean, I think it should probably be published in the local paper, but we'll talk about that later. But thank you very much. There's been a lot of little things happening over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I'm going to hit some of the highlights. One was we were removing a dead tree. Once the branches were cut back, found that there was a installed wire wrapped around a branch because of where the tree was located. The cable company did it on purpose. They have a device for that because there was nowhere for them to support the wire, so they put it in the tree. Well, we couldn't cut the tree down because we can't touch their wires. So it's the same group that is also involved in that cluster of wires that's hanging near the ground in the parking lot on the east side of downtown. So I reached out to the companies. They got back with me, said, hey, that's not ours, but we know whose it is. Here's the contacts. The contacts got a hold of their contact, who I happen to know very well. Was on a planning commission with him for 18 years. He immediately came to town, removed the wire from the tree so it could be cut down the very next day, and then he today moved their wires related to the cluster in the parking lot downtown. He also lifted the cable for the school or the ISD. So now we're down to, while he was up there, he read from the cluster of wires that it is Frontier's wires who are hanging low now. And I've reached directly to their Michigan head director, who we have regular contact with due to all the work they've been doing, and I assume they'll get right on that. I've given them the deadline of the end of this month, because next month we have all the activity in the parking lot. The pole removal that was brought up, I followed up on that a week ago, and the gentleman in charge of the region said it was on the work order. It would either be done this week that we're in or next week. So I'm looking forward to 2 more old poles being removed from town. We had a catastrophic failure on our Vactor truck, which is in really excellent shape except for one pump motor lost its seals. So we reviewed the process with the Vactor company. That is a brand, so you have to go with them, for their product. There was the option of rebuilding the pump or ordering a brand new one. The brand new one's a little more expensive, but it comes with a warranty. Considering the condition of our truck, I have opted to order the new one for this emergency situation rather than A, rebuilding, which could take much longer, and B, if down the road, 5 years, 10 years, we go to sell the truck, we will have a better resale because we have a new pump installed instead of a rebuilt old one. So that will come through on the bills probably within the next month. It was a pretty hefty expense. It's around $20,000. So, but under emergency protocols, I'm allowed to spend that, but I want to make sure you were aware because in fact, it's a big number. And that truck has become so pivotal because we don't use it nearly as much for cleaning sewers as we do for cleaning everything else and vactoring, making holes and fixing roads. And it's just been, it's become indispensable in our system. And all over Michigan, these trucks have become. That's why their value has skyrocketed.
Historical perspective for the younger council members, we didn't have a Vactor truck up until the early 2000s, and we debated that heavily. And at the time, we had so much issues with our sewer with limb growth and all that. And since we've been on a maintenance schedule for the last 15, 20 years now of cleaning them yearly or bi-yearly, a lot of those the root issues have disappeared. So I think it has been an essential piece of equipment, even with the truck we had prior to this one. So.
We have Peerless Midwest coming in to conduct the backup well testing and pumping volume testing that they do annually. So that will be happening this week. DPW had to repair a force main sewer. It broke last week. They were able to wait through the weekend and then they fixed it on Monday. It was fairly deep, but not too deep that it would require a box. I might be wrong, but I think Bernice was the road. So it's a force main, so it's under pressure all the time. Our Rome court, we had a couple of blight cases last Monday and this Monday. The Rome court blight case, which had 2 inoperable cars in place. You recall there was a gentleman that came here and complained. We received the best verdict I think we've ever gotten. We are recouping a bunch of our costs, plus both cars have to be out of there within 21 days. If they're not, we can tow them, put the costs back on the owner. And we got a 1-year agreement that if anything is identified by us as inoperable, we can remove it immediately. So we don't need to go back to court. That was a big one for us. You may or may not remember that your waste hauling contract expires this year. So I have been touching base with other companies regarding their access, the packages that they provide. We have been having trouble with our current hauler, small ones, but something almost every single week. So I just wanted you to know that that is in the works, and it can be contentious. So we're going to do a very careful bid so that everyone follows the same process. And
But we are going out to bid.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
I know they have a policy of they pick up so much per house, and if you have more than the allotted, that you have to make a special appointment for. I think one of those examples is that apartment on Washington where, and I get it this week, they had some new people move in and there's some stuff out there right now. But on my travels around town last week, there was one house that just had a pillage of stuff. And when I went by it the next day, it was all gone. But sometimes, like on Washington, where it's right there, they won't take it. Do they have an explanation for that?
They do. The one thing that has become a chronic issue is there is a new rule, and I don't know if it's just their rule. What I'm understanding, it isn't just their rule, but any mattress type product must be bagged or they will not pick it up. So no one knew that. That house you're talking about had 2 mattresses out for a lengthy period of time, and I reached out to them and said, pick them up. And then if they didn't, I asked Brian to pick them up that Friday and put them in our special dumpster because they've been out there and we were having a holiday weekend coming up. That's when we learned that they have a new rule that things like that have to be bagged. So
Is that a rule under our contract?
I don't think it is, but I don't know if it's a statewide rule.
Well, that's what I want to know. And the only reason I bring it up is because one of the very few times that we've actually had our service provider show up here, and our then pro tem, now president, sat here yelling at them after they stipulated a bunch of rules to us that were not in the contract, that he said, we're not going to abide by any of that. You don't dictate new terms to us. It was, you were allowed a max of 2 cans,
Right.
no bags over a certain amount of weight, and we're not going to pick up all these items. And if you want, you have to call and schedule an appointment. And we went, quite literally, none of those are in the contract, and we're not going to abide by any one of them. And you are going to provide it, or you're in breach of contract. And so I'm not surprised to hear that they're going to continue to make up new rules that I don't think we have any reason are unenforceable. I mean, they can change their policy whenever they like. That doesn't matter. You have to provide the service that you agree to in the contract, unless the contract itself says we get to make up new rules whenever we want. I don't know what it says, and I would just be curious. If it's a state law, sure, okay. If it's not a state law, are we once again being dictated terms that we don't have to abide by? Because it does create an inconvenience for our residents that the rules are just changing always and they don't know.
It does make it insurmountable for them to win the next contract.
Yes.
So, but they're on notice. They have, in fact, left things sit, and we have, in fact, picked them up recently. So we can go back and look for that one item, but that the president is exactly right. It seems like that house in particular, that they refuse to pick up everything. And it isn't any more or less than other houses. That house in particular, they're not doing it. So, and we've called them over and over about it, but.
Street and sidewalk are the most shallow in town.
Right. I already touched base. We had a great meeting with Great Lakes Water Authority this week. You will see it came today in the mail. Emailed a contract renewal in the next packet. It will be for review, not for voting. And it's very minor. I think it's 2 pages. It's as small as this thing we agreed tonight for, using email. And it simply modifies our daily maximum use volumes down to what we are experiencing. So otherwise, there were no issues. There was one outstanding glitch they wanted explanation of. We had the documents, sent it off to them. We were prepared, and like I said, the meeting couldn't have went more smooth, and it was wrapped up. They've provided us the minutes of the meeting already. We got the contract today with the changes highlighted, and it, like I said, couldn't have been better. We are, I believe, customer 84 out of 86 to have their meeting with Great Lakes. So they're getting at the end of the row for their renewals, and they might have been tired, so they gave in a little better. I don't know, but it went very well. We have our St. Clair Street info on the website and on Facebook. We have not added the FAQ section yet, but I haven't had a question yet about it from anyone that has looked at it. So I just wanted you to know it has been put on the website, and people are able to look at it a couple different ways. Bids are due on our St. Clair Street project September 7th. Exciting times. Our engineer has contacted me and said, hey, we have had an unbelievable response, way more than, remember he commented here that they've been having good response, way more than any of their other projects. So I believe we're going to get good bids. We might even get larger, more aggressive companies that want to start immediately. So all those things will be under consideration once they arrive and we can look at them. But moving right along, I did let you know that Michigan Rural Water is starting with us next week to review things for a capital improvement plan. It's not an overnight process, but their first day visit is, he said he'll be here about 4 hours. So it will be well underway next week. That is a rate review and a capital improvement plan. I ended up going to the Secretary of State on behalf of the village. We had a trailer that we sold that was never registered. We bought it several years ago. It never got registered. So I had to go visit the Secretary of State, explain it, then convince them that we were tax exempt. So we got the trailer registered for about $50, and I think Randy might have put it in the mail to the gentleman, his new title, today, so that he can get it registered where he bought it. We had a meeting with the DDA Finance Committee. They had asked for a very significant amount of information regarding their year-end numbers. Randy, we discussed it. Randy has generated or completed, I'm going to say roughly 80% of that data. In the meantime, since that meeting, she has one section left to complete. And did you send them off most of that already?
Sent it off on Monday, early in the day for them.
So that is quite a feat to have accomplished that. To give you an example of a piece, there was a question about, say, a bill X for $1,000. That bill might be pulled from 10 different accounts related to work that was done in the DDA by the DPW with their expenses and so on. All those invoices had to be looked up. The entries had to be tracked. If they used a credit card had to be pulled. It's one component of a card had to be pulled. It's one component of a 6-page credit card bill. So it was a very large amount of work, and I'm very happy you're able to get it done so quickly.
Well, thanks to Pam, she was a big help, so.
Well, that's good. We did the Heritage Festival meeting with all the department heads, and the one thing I hadn't done that was my walkaway assignment was get a hold of Lapeer County EMS for their unit to be on site as we have had a ambulance on site for the festival for the last 3 years. So they're all hooked up and ready to go, and everybody was up to speed. Angela had some things to do yet, but the police, the county, and the DPW are set. We are going to, for your information, and tell all your friends that Howland Road will be closed. There won't be any access in that road like there has been the last 2 years. And that will include closing the school gate, because we were having a lot of people going on the detour and coming back in Howland and around through the gate. So we're going to eliminate.
Howland from where to where? Not that it's a problem, just want to make sure I understand.
From Tub Springs
Tum Spring all the way down to
to the corner.
you. Okay,
But it'll be at Tub Springs will be where the hard stop is.
correct. Understood. Yep, and you're right. Yeah, I know that when we've done registration there, people flying through those gates, it's been a problem.
Residents on that street will be notified.
Yeah, we do that. We deliver a email up and or a letter up and down 53 and so on.
For all road closures, for everyone, not just those residents, right?
Yeah, like I say, all through where the road is closed.
Right.
We were approached about having an Airbnb. I didn't have the answer, so I punted it to Caitlin, so she's researching it now for me. If we allow Airbnbs within the village of Almont. My gut feeling is we don't, but I couldn't put my fingers on it. So Caitlin will be looking at it.
It's more than that, but there's whether or not we have our own ordinances and whether or not
Right.
whether or not we've ruled it out. But there's also frequently in a lot of communities deed restrictions as well. So, which not something you can easily just overcome.
So the last items are related to the DPW property purchase. We have already received a clear phase 1 environmental. No need to continue on. And we have, we're halfway done. I'm going to say halfway done with the appraisal. He told me it would be here the end of next week. And the, I've reached out to get a price on a meets and bounds survey from a couple of different groups so that we can, we have a comparative price, but we need a meets and bounds survey to be able to put into the agreement at the end. And phase 1. Oh yeah, an appraisal. So that's my list. Any questions? Comments?
You need your own section on the agenda when you go through 16 items at comment time. That's not comment, Dale. That's a full manager's report.
Well, normally I'm giving it to you every 2 weeks, but this is 4 weeks worth. So,
Oh, is that all?
well, I do want to ask a question. This is for Randy. In the executive session, I would like to talk about a legal matter that has come up. Can I ask for both? It's legal, it's a case that we're involved in, and I don't think we can discuss it publicly. So,
Do you have a written opinion of legal counsel?
no.
Then we can't make a motion and it would
Okay.
The
All right.
motions we can make under OMA are strict.
Okay. Well, I'm used to having
You can't
that,
make a motion under the OMA, you come out of and then make a motion, so you can,
I mean, the motion
Have
you
it
can make
just-
to go to closed session.
Yeah.
There's
and
specific
you should have
sections.
done that on you have to amend the agenda to clearly list that.
Okay.
It's supposed to be on your agenda prior, only
Well,
for
it's-
the sake that you are asking for your review to be private, that you
Yeah.
say that at the agenda time and then closed sessions
Okay,
listed.
because it came up today and I just was willing to talk
Not
about
that we
that.
can't go into closed session to discuss litigation, but you can't be the reason we do. We have to be reviewing the legal opinion of an attorney or discussing a settlement, or we have to be given something from legal counsel because it's the legal counsel portion of it that makes it attorney-client privilege that allows us to go into closed session.
All right, great. We won't then talk about that.
I do not.
I think I'm covered.
President Pro Tem Steffer.
Just that we have our final performance of Music at the Park this Thursday, 7 p.m. If you haven't made it yet, it's your last chance.
I wanted to thank the homecoming committee and the DDA and everyone else involved making the homecoming a success this year. I think it was really nice, the events that I went to. Regarding the St. Clair Street Project posting on the village website, I think previously we talked about having that posted on the village Facebook page along with the FAQ. Is that still the plan that we should?
It's supposed to be on the Facebook page. We just haven't got the FAQ done yet.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was still the plan. And then my last thing is in the last township meeting, someone had brought up that they were interested in sharing the cost for the BSA cloud. I don't know if that's something. It's something that Randy.
I can speak on that. Kim Streeter came in my office today. They absolutely cannot be done, and she knew it. Again, a township trustee that doesn't really have any understanding, you can't share.
Okay.
So it's not happening.
It sound promising, but I wanted to just
No.
check.
Is it because it's contractually prohibited or just because it's two different data sets?
It's two different data sets, two different servers. You can't share like your BSNA, to municipalities. So, yeah, she knew that as well. So we don't even want to go there.
Understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's all I had. Thanks.
Just update. I don't see anything about the St. Clair project on our Facebook page, so you might want to double check that.
It's been on for a little while, so does it go down as it's been on there? Okay, we'll double check. I know Lisa had said she put it on, so.
I have a question.
Councilmember Miller.
Thank you. Most of what I want to say was already covered, but I also would like to publicly thank, the homecoming committee on everything that they did. I attended, a few of the things that they had going on. I didn't see anybody I knew there, but and I think they did a great job. That was very nice.
Great.
I'm going to defer back to Councilmember Schneider, who has a question.
But just because I don't want to miss it, I did go to those as well. I went to a few of those events as well. I went to the fireworks. It was very nice. Did a nice job. But question was, I've seen a lot of the posts from the folks that are redoing the old King's Mill, talking about how they're building several cabins for homeless veterans. And they are actively seeking volunteers because they are in the middle of constructing said cabins behind the mill. Wondering if you knew anything about that and if it's been permitted, approved, but they have actively been seeking participants for the last few weeks. There's constant videos about they are in the middle of trying to construct the pads, they have what sounds like a much larger operation going on than maybe was originally proposed. I strongly suggest you watch a few of those videos and reach out to the property owner to make sure what's going on. It certainly sounds like the type of thing that would need site plan approval, possibly some building permit. I don't know, but it certainly, it sounds like a genuinely kind idea they have, but I also am concerned that they're just going to start doing it without any municipal approval.
It's interesting that you say that because just randomly, I called them last week and said, how's it going? Anything new? What's up? They had originally approached us about a shed in which we had to send them on to CCA about. Now that is wildly outside of what they ever talked to me about. Definitely would require site plan approval and permitting, but how do you get there? There's no bridge, as far as I know, across the river to their property. So that was also something they had originally asked me. And then I said, well, you got to talk to Clinton River Watershed, Eagle, about what you need to do to be able to go over this.
Much less is
Waterway.
it even zoned appropriately for residential housing, temporary residential housing. I just saw a mess of, I wonder how you'd get all that approved. That sounds tough. And
But that was how we met them originally. They posted all they were going to be doing and what they were already doing. And then CCA ended up uncovering that they were in the middle of rehabbing the building without permits or anything. So they're more than aware of the process. So if they have started, they have purposefully ignored the process.
check out the videos and maybe contact him. Just
Sure.
I want to make sure you're aware.
I'm going to have Randy's writing that down, and she'll remind me to, because I'm not on Facebook too much, but someone I'm sure will snap whatever they call it.
We can send you the
screenshot
link.
of it,
Yes.
Send it over to me. Nikki.
President Dyke, I forgot to say one thing. I should have said, I am working on the remuneration committee. I've already done a survey for them of the local county and what everybody is paid. You're highly underpaid. And some of them are shocking. And I have reached out to all committee members and gotten their times that are available. So I'm actually going to send an email tomorrow recommending next Wednesday at 5:30 to get this going. So I anticipate with giving them the information in advance, it might be one, if 2 meetings. Yeah. So
Thank you, Randy.
you're welcome.
Didn't even think that.
I'm just going to echo what council members Powell and Miller said. I attended several of the homecoming events, the music on the porch, the class reunion, some of the park activities, visited some downtown businesses, and it was well organized, and they did a good job. Attended service at the First Congregational for the first time in several years. Our former pastor from 20 years ago was there and gave the sermon coming back to homecoming, so it was a good weekend overall. So I commend the homecoming committee for the work they've done. With that said, it is now time to go into closed session. Do we have a motion?
I move that council enter into closed session pursuant to Section 8A of the Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.268A, to consider the periodic personnel evaluation of the village manager who has requested such closed hearing.
Motion by Councilmember Schneider, supported by President Pro Tem Stepler, to move into closed session as stated on the record. Roll call.
Sorry. Schneider?
Aye.
Steffler?
Aye.
Glasser?
Aye.
I see that different every time. Miller?
Aye.
Powell?
Aye.
And Dyke. Give me a second to shut doors and turn off the camera.